Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about my best bets as we head into this weekend. Definitely some that are a little bit sketchy. I'm kind of going with my gut just a little bit more this upcoming weekend, and if it goes poorly, then I will go all the way away from my gut next weekend. But at the end of the day, let's get into a couple of just weekend wrap-up stuff. A couple of headlines I want to get on y'all's radar, and then a couple of injury updates from all around the games this upcoming weekend. And we'll start with Grayson McCall. He is retiring from the sport of football. If you saw that hit that he suffered in that Wake Forest game, it is not all that surprising. It was a very, very scary hit. It's one of the scarier ones that I have seen in all of my years watching college football. And he released a statement with his family. He said, "I battled injuries my whole career, but this is one I cannot come back from. Brain specialist, my family, and I have come to the conclusion it's in my best interest to hang up the cleats." And I fully agree with him. It was very, very scary to watch that unfold. I think everyone's first thought was, man, I hope that kid's okay. Everyone's second thought was probably the last time he puts on a football helmet. And you hate to see him go. Was a remarkable player throughout his time at Coastal Carolina, and then when he made his way over to NC State. At Coastal Carolina, 10,005 yards, 88 touchdowns over 44 games for Coastal Carolina, was incredible in that 2020 COVID season. Had that incredible game against BYU that felt like a high school game the way that it was scheduled, but he was absolutely incredible to watch. Didn't necessarily have the year that he wanted at NC State by any means, but was still a big-time part of that team, I'm sure, from a leadership perspective. And now he heads on to his next chapter, and it sounds like the next chapter is going to be coaching, whatever capacity that looks like in, I don't know, but a very special player, a career that I think a lot of us will remember for quite some time, and we'll be telling our kids in 20 years, saying, this Grayson McCall kid, you're going to want to watch a couple of those tapes, because it was really, really fun to watch this kid play, especially at Coastal Carolina. It was a special thing to watch. So his next step into coaching, I hope he does incredible amounts of success. He's a very, very smart football player, so I have very little doubts that he's going to be very successful and he will be in that industry for a very long time. But obviously, you hate it whenever a career like this especially has to get cut a little bit short, but obviously in the best interest for him and his family, and now he gets to move forward to his next chapter, and I think he's going to be incredibly successful in that. Absolutely love to see him sticking around college football, and can't wait to see where he ends up, whether that's Coastal Carolina or NC State or anywhere else in the country. I think he's going to be a huge success. So hate to see him go a little bit earlier than we were hoping, but obviously best thing for his health, and whatever he does next, I'm sure he's going to be plenty successful in that. And then we move forward to the Pac-12, because they had a very interesting announcement earlier in the year that a lot of people were mad about. But it sounds like Oregon State and Washington State will play each other twice in 2025. They're going to play a little bit of a home and home on that season, and it's the last season that they have kind of on their by their lonesome all the way out there in the Pacific Northwest. It's the first game will be on November 1st at Oregon State. Then Washington State will host on November 29th at the end of the year. So I think this is really cool. I understand why people are not too big of fans of it. I understand why this is something that they're not necessarily loving. I think it's kind of cool. It's two teams that are out there kind of on their own. They're pseudo-independent teams. They're not going to get into the playoff as we've seen this year. We had that incredible run from Washington State to start the year. It's rarely going to get to the point where they make the CFP. Regardless, I think this is a fun little wrinkle into the season. It'll give you a fun idea of just how much home field advantage matters, and I can promise you a sweep in those two games would give you just crazy bragging rights moving forward. So I understand why people don't necessarily love it. I totally get that. I'm kind of into the idea just because it's their last season out there. Let them have some fun. That's kind of my stance on the whole thing, I'll be totally honest. But then we move over to the SEC, and weirdly, we move over to the SEC and I show you Vince Young, but the reality is Vince Young, along with a couple other people, have been added to the SEC Legends class of 2024. I don't know how. Last I checked, Vince Young did not play in the SEC, but at the end of the day, he is not alone in the people that have been added to this thing that did not sniff the SEC. Barry Switzer is in this class, and he was an incredible coach for Oklahoma from 1973 to 1988. They were not in the SEC during that time. And then you got Chase Daniel. He's making his way in from a Missouri quarterback, incredible quarterback for a number of years, from 2005 to 2008. They were not in the SEC in 2005 and 2008. And then you got Luke Joeckel, a guy that got drafted number 1 overall, very talented offensive lineman at A&M. He played in 2011 when they were not in the SEC. So I don't understand what we're doing here. This is absolutely ridiculous. You do not need to give these teams spots in the Legends class when they have not played in that conference. Just wait. You have more than enough people with Johnny Manziel for A&M. Put him in. You have a number of people for Missouri. You have people that you can put in from that group. And then for Texas and OU, just wait a little bit. Maybe Steve Sarkisian can join that group in 10 years. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Brent Venables can join that group in a couple of years. It's one of those things that I don't understand why they're trying to force this. It just makes this look goofy and not a real thing. So I didn't love it by any means. I don't think anyone really loved it. It felt very, very weird, very forced, and one of those things that a lot of these programs probably don't much care about, if I'm being totally honest, but I guess if you can get them into that legend status, you'll take it. But a very, very weird thing, a thing that I do not like at all, and a thing that I can't even fathom how they came to that decision. But at the end of the day, congratulations to Vince Young, to Barry Switzer, to Chase Daniel, and to Luke Jokel, because you are SEC legends somehow. So you're legends of two different conferences. Congratulations. But moving forward to some injury updates for this upcoming weekend, because there's quite a few. We'll start with that Texas-Vanderbilt game. It does sound like Isaiah Bond is not going to go in this game. He was questionable going into that Georgia game. Felt like he was going to be able to be a full go. Didn't play for the vast majority of that game. Probably played much less snaps than he usually plays. I bet 80% less snaps than he usually plays. And then on the back end, Derek Williams is still doubtful, a very talented starting safety. Probably going to be a couple of weeks before we see him again, but definitely one that they're hoping to get back as quickly as possible. For Vanderbilt, the big news is Miles Capers and Cedric Alexander. Sounds like they were going to play. They have been upgraded from questionable to probable for this game. Capers, they badly need. Very, very good edge rusher and someone that they're very badly going to need in this game. Eli Stowers is another guy to watch. Sounds like he's going to be good to go as well. So Vanderbilt, with all of the questions in midweek, a lot of those have been subsided throughout the week. So no worries there if you're a Vanderbilt fan. Moving on to Navy Notre Dame, not necessarily a ton of updates here. The biggest one is Mitch Jeter, the starting kicker for Notre Dame, is going to be or might be out in this game. He's still a little bit up in the air. Definitely something to watch. He was out for that Georgia Tech game last week, and Zach Yoakum, the guy that came in for him, 1 for 2 on field goals on that day. So you probably want your guy back, especially if you're going to be in that close game late down the stretch. If you miss a kick with a backup quarterback, it's going to sting a little bit worse. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens there. If he plays, then could be a huge impact, could be no impact. But we'll find out on Saturday. Then moving over to Missouri, Alabama. This is one that for Alabama, they avoided they dodged a bullet on the back end of that defense, because Keon Saab, the starting safety, sounds like he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Hate to see it. Lower body injury. Been a very, very talented player for that back end. That being said, it sounds like Xavier Brown, Devontae Smith, and Red Morgan will be good to go in that back end, because there was a world where not all of those guys were ready to go, and you have a very, very interesting back end going into a game where you got to face Luther Burden and Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper, so definitely something to watch. Now on the other side, it's a lot worse for Missouri. At best, Brady Cook and Nate Noel are doubtful for this game. It was reported earlier in the week that Nate Noel wouldn't go by Pete Thamel. Then other sources closer to the Missouri program said it hasn't been decided yet. I wouldn't expect him to be out there. And then Mookie Cooper is still questionable for this game. I expect him to play, but we'll see how close to 100% is. I can tell you pretty confidently that Missouri was not planning to trot out there with Drew Pine as their quarterback, but that might just be the way that they have to go about business on Saturday. And then the big time one at night, we have a couple of different updates here. For LSU, CJ Daniels is good to go, and that's something that you're probably going to watch pretty much week over week for the LSU just to make sure that he's ready to go, but it sounds like he's getting back up to speed. He should be fine the rest of the way, and barring some additional injury, obviously, but a very talented guy that they very much need in that lineup. Caden Durham, also probable for this game. Very badly need him in the running back position, no doubt about that. Chris Hilton continues to be questionable. I don't think he's going to play in this game. It's one of those things that I've kind of stopped holding out hope that he is going to play in some of these games. So I do think he's probably out, but the wide receiver room just continues to get that little bit more healthy. For A&M, the one big thing here is Chase Basantis, the starting offensive lineman for A&M, is going to be out for this game and possibly out for a little bit of time, but we'll update you as it goes on. Could be a huge difference in this game. LSU just needs a couple openings on that offensive line, and things could happen in a hurry, and maybe losing Basantis is just enough. But then we got some other notes all around the country. For Oregon, got hit with a little bit of an injury bug right now. Jordan Birch, as well as Terrence Ferguson, their starting tight end, Matthew Bedford, their starting O-lineman, are in kind of a wait-and-see approach, it seems, going into this upcoming weekend. I'd be a little bit surprised if they play. I'll be honest. I think Oregon feels good enough about where they are in this game and where they can be going into this game that I don't think they're going to play, but obviously will come down to what happens on Saturday. We will see there, and definitely could be a difference in this game. I just tend to believe that Oregon can get it done even without these guys. Then over in Columbus, Ohio, their left tackle is out for the year. Josh Simmons, definitely a very, very tough loss for this team. Zen Mikowski will take over at that left tackle position, and he's going to have to play really good football. He is a redshirt junior, so has played plenty of football in the past, but definitely going to be something to watch because this offensive line felt like it was starting to roll downhill. Losing Josh Simmons definitely does hurt that quite a bit. And then Lathan Ransom, the very talented safety, he's day-to-day right now. I'd be surprised if he played this weekend just because of the opponent, but who knows? At the end of the day, he very well could be out there, and he's one of those guys that you're going to have to pretty much drag off the field if you don't want him to play. But on the other side, for Nebraska, Ramir Johnson will be out for this game. A huge blow for a team that very badly needs to slow things down. Gabe Irving's going to have a lot on his table this upcoming weekend, and it does sound like Deshaun Singleton and Nash Hutmacher will be ready to go, which is absolutely huge for that defense. They badly need, especially Hutmacher, a very, very talented player on the interior of that defensive line. You badly need him in this game. So a couple of good news, one really bad news for Nebraska on this front. And then you got Travis Hunter. He is going to be good to go in that Cincinnati game. Everyone's going to be watching just how much he plays, how they allocate his snaps. Frankly, I think they should play him a little bit more on defense and then take him off on offense. But at the end of the day, I'm not Deion Sanders. I do not know more about football than Deion Sanders. So whatever decision he makes, I'm sure is the right one to go with. And it'll be interesting to watch this one unfold really throughout the next couple of weeks, not just on Saturday. And then another big-time story from the world of college football, Colin Lacey, a very talented wide receiver that transferred from South Alabama to Louisville. He is going to utilize his red shirt and be out for the rest of the year. Very confused what the situation is there. I don't know if it's, a little bit more of that NIL type stuff. I don't know if it's playing time. I don't know if it's injury. It sounds like it's injury. It sounds like he does have something lingering around that is just kind of impeding him from playing the best football that he can. So if that's it, I'm more than fine with that. It will be interesting to see if he does return to Louisville this upcoming season, and maybe that gives us a better idea of what was really happening behind the scenes there. But definitely a development for them this upcoming weekend, or tonight against Boston College, and we'll see what happens there. But Colin Lacey officially out for the season, and Louisville would just have to make do with Ja'Cory Brooks and Chris Bell and a couple of the other guys they have back there. So going to be really interesting to watch this unfold, and overall, this weekend just has something about it. There's something in my soul that makes me think that this is going to be a little bit of a wild, little bit of off-the-walls weekend where we get a couple of answers, and you badly need them at this point in the season because we're getting to a point where I'm getting nervous that we're not going to have any answers by the time we get to Selection Sunday. So I think we'll get a couple this upcoming weekend, and we will break them all down on Monday, but that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference for us. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. We have really great people doing great work across every single sport you could want. We have the World Series kicking off tonight. Plenty of people covering baseball all around the place. We have basketball going on their full way. Nelson's got you covered, no doubt about that. So anything in the world of sports you need, come on over to GSMC and we have you covered. But thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys tomorrow to break down what I assume is going to be a crazy Week 9.